Lights, camera, action. Day 132 of 365 days of meditation. I was up at about 6 this morning. I practiced for just over an hour. So, finished around, I don't know, quarter after 7 or something, I think, approximately. And not a ton to note. It was nice. Didn't have any time constraints this morning, so just sat in the dark and no headphones, no music, no nothing. Just chilled for an hour. And that's kind of my favorite way to meditate at the moment. So, yeah, that was good. Not a lot to report out of it. I was thinking, I've started journaling again after meditation, which has been really useful the last few days. I've seemed like I have more to talk about when I do that. I'm able to remember the meditation a bit more too, if there is anything interesting that comes out of it. But I was kind of thinking about meditation in terms of, the wrapping up of the meditation, and really what it does is, I mentioned my sort of process that I go through at the end of meditation in my last video, and ending my meditations in that way sort of just kicks off my day on a sort of positive note. I'm practicing some self-compassion and practicing gratitude. It really just puts me in a good state of mind, and that sort of carries over into the rest of my day. So that's pretty awesome. Other than that, I listened to an interesting interview today. It was Aubrey Marcus interviewing Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes from the School of Greatness. Great podcast. Interesting character. It's really cool just to watch a couple of, you would sort of think of them as like jock type dudes. And, just being open and honest about their life, changes they've made. They're sort of being vulnerable about their own weaknesses, mistakes they've made, changes they've made in their life, stuff like that. And it's really just kind of cool to watch, especially Lewis Howes. I've followed him for a while, and I've really sort of seen him grow as an interviewer and a podcaster, and the change is quite remarkable over the few years I've been watching him. One of the interesting things they brought up, or Lewis brought up, was this idea of, from a personal development side of things, and just in day-to-day life, when he's feels like he's getting triggered, or his life's going off the rails at all, or things are just not going in the direction he wants them to, he asks this question: am I making decisions based off of a woundedness inside my younger self? And he's spent a bit of time over the last couple years, by the sounds of it, doing what seems a lot like that Buddhist meditation practice that I was doing early on in the beginning of this 365-day challenge, which is sort of sitting with your younger self in moments that were like revisiting moments that were very difficult in your life, and then sitting with your younger self and sort of providing that support, and letting your younger self know that you have your own back, or that you have your back, and that it's a safe space, that you've made it through that sort of stuff. I believe Nicola Pera, she has some interesting content on YouTube as well, and an interesting book. She calls it reparenting. But I first read about it in a Thich Nhat Hanh book. He's a Buddhist monk, I believe he's from Vietnam originally. And he talks about this Buddhist practice of revisiting your younger self. And it's sort of a way of reframing the past, I think. And Aubrey Marcus in that interview mentioned that when he was doing, he's kind of out there a little bit, Aubrey Marcus. I think he's big into this sort of psychedelic journeys as well. And he mentioned at one time during this sort of psychedelic retreat he was on, I think it was an ayahuasca ceremony, that one of the shamans made a comment. People were talking about the past, and the shaman made a comment that there's what did he say? There's something like you can create a good childhood at any point in your life, or something like that. I wish I could remember the quote. I thought I'd written it down, but I'm looking at my notes and I didn't write it down. Fail. Damn it. Oh well. Moving on. I can't remember it. But the idea was that the shamans sort of the quote was great, but the idea was that, like, yeah, you can sort of go back, revisit the past, reframe, reparent, and what was once a sort of a really rough childhood in your mind could become something that you are grateful for. That maybe some events were difficult or harmful to you, but you've made it out the other side, and you have some gratitude because it shaped you into the person you are. And it's interesting thinking about it in the context of Lewis Howes, and it's easy to say, yeah, I'm grateful for my past, and if it wasn't that difficult, but Lewis Howes himself actually went through, I believe he was sexually molested by like a family member or something, and he's talked about this now. But so that's not an easy childhood to go through, and if somebody that goes through that can sort of reframe things and be grateful for his life experiences because they've made him the person he is, I think it's pretty much open to anybody to do it. Man's what is it? Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. The idea that life is ultimately what you make of it and how you interpret what your experiences are and how you choose to respond to the experiences that are going on or that you're having. That's a great book, by the way. So yeah, there was another really interesting thing that was brought up in that interview, and I totally related to this when it kicked me right in the feels when I heard him say it. And Lewis Howes says, "There's no such thing as hell unless you're alone." I think it was Lewis Howes that said that. And I can totally relate to that. And this is why I always say, if you're struggling with your mental health, talk to somebody, talk to somebody, talk to somebody. Don't suffer in silence. Because I didn't heed the advice that I currently give right now. Of course, nobody ever gave me that advice at that point in my life, but struggling with mental illness can feel like hell. And if there's no such thing as hell unless you're alone, then you definitely don't want to try to get through whatever mental health struggles you're going through by yourself. It's not necessary. It just makes things way, way worse, and I can definitely vouch for that. I've said in the past that, no amount of physical pain can, hold a candle to sort of the emotional, mental, psychological torment and torture that was my day in, day out experience of living with obsessive compulsive disorder, not knowing what it was, not knowing what I was doing, and most importantly, not telling anybody about it and hiding it. By doing that, I literally created my own hell, and I experienced it day in, day out. So if you are struggling, I would encourage you not to do the same, and to talk to somebody. Obviously I am not in that place anymore. It's been years since I was in a really, really, really bad state, and I'm grateful for that. And by talking to people about what I had been through back then, and when I first started talking to somebody about it, or first mentioned it, I remember first reading the first book once I learned what OCD was, and I didn't know what it was until after I talked to somebody and mentioned what I was doing. The book was called Touch and Go Joe, and I was in university at the time, sitting in the university library, and I decided to write a paper on obsessive compulsive disorder, knowing nothing about it other than somebody telling me, "Oh, sounds like that's what you have." And I was reading the book, and the idea of there's no such thing as hell unless you're alone, reading that book, just reading the book about somebody else's experience with obsessive compulsive disorder, made me realize, oh, this is a thing. Oh, I'm not the only one. Oh, I'm not alone. And I remember that feeling when I realized, holy crap, I'm not alone. This is a thing. Other people have this. Other people experience this. Although my symptoms were not identical or even necessarily super similar. The feeling was just overwhelming to realize that I wasn't alone. I don't know how to describe it other than, like, it was the best feeling I had in relation to what I was experiencing to that point in my entire life. It was like a massive relief and weight off my shoulders to realize that I wasn't the only one. And it really just gave me hope. So I think that's what not trying to go through this alone, and talking to somebody about it really can do, is it provides a sense of hope. There's something about connecting with other human beings that provides hope, no matter how brutal the circumstances. So yeah, that's it for today. Bit of a rambling there. I don't know how clear and concise I was, but it'll do. Day 132 in the books, and yeah, thanks for watching. If you like, if you want to subscribe, click the bell, all those things. Apparently that's where you're supposed to end a YouTube video if you want to get your message out there. So we'll try it, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.